Let's talk more about what Sidney Powell's defense team is alleging here with her undiagnosed schizophrenia. We want to welcome in renowned psychotherapist, author, and the host of the podcast, Talking Live. Dr. Robi Ludwig is with us this morning. Good morning, Dr. Robi. Wonderful to have you on our first opening statements show.
Good morning. I'm thrilled to be here. Congratulations, Julie.
Oh, thanks a million, Dr. Robi. You know, this case is so tough. As you know, this is just tragic all the way around. There are no winners here. But to really get to the substance of this, we have to explore that false reality that Sidney Powell was living in. So both sides agree, Dr. Robi, that it's clear she was living in this make-believe world all by herself. Is that conduct consistent with schizophrenia?
You know, what can happen is when somebody is Sidney's age, that's when the first signs of mental illness can present itself. But she doesn't sound disorganized at all. Sometimes people with schizophrenia, there's an oddity to their presentation. And in looking at her, she doesn't appear to look like that, but it's very possible that she had some bipolarity that had never been documented before. There's not enough information, but what I'm hearing is that she presented in a fairly normal way, which would suggest it may not be schizophrenia. It could be some other kind of psychosis. But it'll be interesting to find out what the experts say about what she's suffering from and if she was receiving treatment or medication at all for her conditions.
Dr. Robi, a follow-up for you, please. Could someone be suffering from both bipolar disorder and schizophrenia?
Yes, it's called schizoaffective disorder. So schizophrenia is a thought disorder where you think things that are not true. And bipolar disorder is a mood disorder. In extreme cases, there's mania. In some cases, there's also psychosis. It's rare, but it can happen. And sometimes when a child or a young adult is Sidney's age, it's not entirely clear what the diagnosis is. It's something that needs to be evaluated over time and studied. So this girl is young, and it sounds like whatever she was experiencing took a hold of her judgment and impulsivity. Now, that doesn't mean she's insane legally, as you and I both know, but it does sound like something went terribly wrong for her.
Oh, absolutely, Dr. Robi. When we think about the violent act that she committed, it is stomach-turning. It is like something out of a horror movie. I'm curious, if she had undiagnosed, untreated schizophrenia at the time, and perhaps, something else, as you said, perhaps bipolar disorder, who knows, is the violence at all surprising to you?
Well, it's interesting that Sidney used a knife, which would suggest that it wasn't premeditated. And we know that the mother-daughter relationship can be quite intense at times. They were reported to have a very close relationship, but that doesn't mean there aren't highs and lows within the mother-daughter relationship. Especially with a matricide, there can be an intensity of emotions that flare up, and if somebody is not well, they get into that impulse and may not kind of be aware of things until their rage settles down, and then it's too late. So with a knife killing, it's often very passionate, but it's very possible it wasn't planned and she got enraged and was not able to regulate herself or her aggression, and it turned out to be a horrible, murderous situation.
What you're saying, Dr. Robi, is exactly what the defense team should be, and I suspect they will be embracing when it's their turn to present. As you said, we know that weapon was in the kitchen where they were standing. So was that skillet we know that she used as well. So that's an excellent point. Not a good fact for prosecutors necessarily, but a good one for the defense team. Dr. Robi, before we let you go, you mentioned we have to see more, right? We need to hear more from these experts. Yes. We really are just scratching the surface with this horrific case. What are you watching for with this trial as it progresses from those experts in terms of what was really going on with Sidney Powell?
I would want to know if she was diagnosed with some kind of mental illness and if she was seeing a psychiatrist and being treated with medication. And if she was taking that medication, she was young, she was 19, they don't like the feel of the medication and they go off of it. And sometimes their symptoms can flare up in an out of control way. So I would really want to hear more about what she was diagnosed with, what form of treatment, if there was a long-standing history of some type of problem going on in terms of her following rules. So you want to look for antisocial character traits, and you want to look for a mood or thought disorder that wasn't being treated properly.